The story of Israel in 2 Kings 17 is a turning point in biblical history. A nation once united under David and Solomon, now fractured and facing its end. The northern kingdom, Israel, stands on the brink of collapse, a result of centuries of drifting from God's covenant. After Solomon's death, Israel split from Judah, creating its own kings and places of worship, an act that led to spiritual separation and idolatry. Fearing the loss of power, Israel's rulers established rival temples, setting the stage for generations of disobedience. Meanwhile, the Assyrian Empire grew stronger, watching Israel's decline. Israel's leaders sought security in alliances and politics, trusting in human strength rather than God. This was more than political miscalculation, it was a spiritual crisis. The people ignored prophets and warnings, choosing idols over the God who had delivered them. Now Assyria loomed as an instrument of judgment. 2 Kings 17 records the devastating consequences of these choices, a nation's fall, but also the groundwork for a greater story of redemption. Let's examine how Israel's fate became a warning and a prelude to hope. Israel's fall was a slow unraveling, not a sudden disaster. Hoshea, Israel's last king, inherited a legacy of idolatry and rebellion stretching back generations. The people and their rulers embraced the customs and idols of surrounding nations, rejecting their unique calling. Kings like Jeroboam led the way, establishing golden calves and pagan shrines, while the people eagerly followed. This wasn't just poor leadership, it was a national choice to abandon God's covenant. Prophets were sent again and again pleading for repentance, but their warnings were ignored. The nation blended God's worship with pagan practices, corrupting their faith from within. Israel's stubbornness sealed its fate. They trusted in idols and alliances, not in the God who had rescued them. The stage was set for judgment, not because God was silent, but because his people refused to listen. Disobedience became their downfall. Judgment arrived in the form of the Assyrian army. King Hoshea rebelled against Assyria, hoping Egypt would save him, but no help came. Assyria besieged Samaria for 3 years, starving the city into surrender. When Samaria fell, Israel ceased to exist as a nation. The Assyrians deported the Israelites, scattering them across their empire to erase their identity. Exile was more than relocation. It was the loss of nationhood, faith, and community. Foreigners were settled in Israel's cities, bringing new gods and customs, forever changing the land. The Israelites became a scattered, broken people, their covenant home lost. This was the beginning of the lost 10 tribes. The fall of Israel was not just a military defeat, but a spiritual and cultural dissolution. The consequences of disobedience were total. 2 Kings 17 makes it clear Israel's destruction was the result of deliberate choices. God had given them a covenant and sent prophets like Elijah and Hosea to call them back. The people rejected these warnings, breaking their sacred agreement with God. Their core failure was unbelief, trusting idols and empires over the God who had delivered them. Idolatry was a symptom of deeper spiritual blindness. God's patience finally ended. He removed Israel from his sight. The exile was both a physical scattering and a spiritual separation. The people who once belonged to God became lost among the nations. Their identity faded, a sobering result of ignoring God's voice. The story stands as a warning. Persistent disobedience leads to devastating loss. Yet even in judgment, 2 Kings 17 hints at hope. The failure of Israel's kings and people reveals the need for a new way, a covenant not based on flawed human effort. Scattering Israel among the nations foreshadows God's plan to reach all peoples, not just one nation. Prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah spoke of a future restoration, a gathering not just physical but spiritual. The old system failed. A perfect king and high priest were needed. This points to the coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who would fulfill what Israel could not. Israel's tragedy warns us against trusting anything above God, but it also magnifies the grace of his ultimate solution. The exile was not the end, but preparation for redemption. Through Jesus, God would gather a new people from every nation, establishing an unshakable kingdom. Israel's story ends in loss, but points forward to hope for all. Are you ready to continue? Just click here and come along with me to the next chapter.